Hello there, this is Jaina Jaslyn with an episode about video games. How exciting! I thought it would be fun just to go over my very favorite video games and tell you a little about my story throughout my entire life of how video gaming has evolved for me. In this episode, I will also be paying more attention to how I am using my voice because I am getting a little bit more serious into voice training and now I have to practice it. Uh, but when I train, I sound one way, and then when I speak, for example, to you right now, I talk another way. So I'm hoping that those can blend together and that I could have my desired voice all the time and naturally. And it might not sound fully female, but I'm finding a voice that is mine. And even if it sounds a little bit masculine, that's okay. I'm also very biased when it comes to voice training, and when I hear my voice played back to me, it sounds like my old voice, even though my old voice was probably somewhere down here. I talked very gruff and aggressive. So when I switch back to this voice, I could kind of hear a difference. But anyway, I'll let you be the judge for that. Video games, okay. Well, what a time we live in. You can get on your PS4, Xbox, or Switch and search up games and download them instantly, and there are tens of thousands of options to choose from. Or if you have a PC or Mac or Linux-based machine, you can search the internet, download those kind of games, and play them anywhere. On your phone, on a laptop you take with you, on an iPad or tablet. Holy crap, gaming is accessible to us 24/7. We can have our gaming fix in an instant. And the younger generations were born into this and they don't know what things were like before. But this is not going to be a back in my day episode. Some parts might come out that way because I am older than some other people. I'm 34 years old. And if you are 24, you're going to have that 10-year gap where things I'm talking about are a little bit 10 years advanced or delayed, or not, neither of those, just 10 years older. There we go. But I'm not that far removed. I'm not in my 50s and talking about Commodore 64 or anything. So my very first system for fun was gifted from my dad from a garage sale, and that was an Atari with the little paddle and like the two buttons, and I played E.T., Indiana Jones, I think, Pong, and I grew bored of it really fast. I didn't like the Atari, but it was fun to have as something to play around with. I didn't even really think about video games until I was about 5 years old. And I suddenly became obsessive over the Sega Genesis system. A few friends got a Sega and they were suddenly the cool kids on the schoolyard. And all of a sudden I wanted a Sega and I wanted to play Sonic and the other Sega games. I just wanted to play lots of Sonic because holy crap, you collect coins and avoid the spiky things and go really fast. That sounds awesome. So I begged my parents for a Sega Genesis for my 6th birthday. And of course they did their parental thing and pretended to forget about it, but really I knew I had a major treat coming my way. So for my 6th birthday, I open up a large box and I go, oh, thanks parents for the Super Nintendo. They must have done their own research, or they misheard me, or they asked friends, and instead of a Sega like I asked for, I got a Super Nintendo, which had recently come out. And because I was so fixated on the Sega, I knew nothing about the Nintendo. But I decided to play it. And the first game I plugged in was Super Mario World. And then all of a sudden, my parents became my best friends because they got me a system I liked and enjoyed way more than the Sega. So a miracle took place on my 6th birthday when I received that Nintendo, because we know what happened to Sega. They just didn't go to dynamic places like Nintendo did. I mean, Sega doesn't have its own version of the Switch, right? So I became a Nintendo boy at the time, self-proclaimed boy. I became a cool Nintendo boy, and I got a few more friends, and we played games together. Suddenly, my little autistic, awkward self became something to be desired because I now appealed to other kids on the play school, on the schoolyard, who also loved to play games, which were very few, because this was a time when you played games, you were a nerd, you were weird, and people thought you, like, had pocket protectors and high water pants, and yeah, so I did get some bullying because of my gaming. But I also had an in with the school bully. I was one of the most bullied friends in school. Another friend of mine, who is still one of my best friends to this day, all those years later, one of my friends at the time was bullied hardcore because he was seen as a nerd. But I learned, because knowledge is power, and because I was bright enough to understand that knowledge is wisdom is power, I found out that the school-wide bully, a really aggressive sort of guy who will pick you up by your head and crush it like a watermelon. Yeah, he did that to me and to my friends. Oh my god. I learned that he secretly played video games, and at this time the Nintendo 64 had come out, and I realized he liked to play Turok 64. So I memorized a 32-digit long cheat code for that game and kept it up here. And I pulled him aside, and he was about to give me a whopping. I'm like, sounds like you would like to know some cheat codes. I became his best friend, and I became a close secret ally. He would pretend to bully me, but not really. He would really wink and smile because he wanted to show and exert his authority as the school bully, but keep me close by. So that was an interesting way that I survived, like elementary school and some of junior high, by sharing cheat codes with school bullies. Alright, let's fast forward. My last system, until recently, the last system I had purchased was a PlayStation 2. Now, entering in the world of PlayStation, I had access to Final Fantasy. I remember one day I was walking down a Fry's electronics store here in America, and I saw this really weird game of a guy holding a large, thick sword on his back, looking up at this monstrosity of a tower, and it said Final Fantasy VII, and something called me to that. And I asked my dad, could I have this for Christmas? And my dad said, sure, you can. And so we bought it that day, and I waited till Christmas, and my entire day on Christmas was filled with the joys and wonders of Final Fantasy. I discovered, this was the second time I've discovered an RPG role-playing game, and I was in love, because this game shared many qualities and characteristics as my first favorite RPG. Can you guess it? Not Earthbound. I wasn't that cool. Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo was the golden shining light from the heavens that introduced me to role-playing games. I just loved the stat points, the numbers, the upgrade, the skill curve, the grinding, the plot, the character development. I loved RPGs so much because it reflected the growth happening inside of me, and I could easily put myself in the role of the protagonist and think of myself as the hero. And that has been a theme that has continued up until this day. I still do that inner reflection, seeing myself as the protagonist of an anime-esque or RPG sort of game, except it's happening in real life. That's just a fun fact about Jaina. Voice check. Sometimes my voice kind of slips, and I want to make sure I'm training these vocal cords. Okay, moving on. I skipped a lot of Super Nintendo games because that system stayed around for many years after I got it. It was a long while until I got the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, which came after. Some of my favorite games were Super Metroid, Star Fox, F-Zero, Goofy. I think it was Goofy had a sort of puzzle solving game. I would wake up every day before school at 4 a.m., sneak downstairs, turn the volume down really low so my parents wouldn't wake up, and I would play these games. I disciplined myself to wake up early before school just so I could get some gaming in. I, I wish I had that kind of discipline and structure and routine today. Good job, little Jason. You did well. For Nintendo 64. Oh, I forgot Super Nintendo. Super Metroid. Oh, Super Metroid. Oh. Okay, Nintendo 64. Of course, Mario 64. Now, this was a game that had an expansive, explorable world, and because I am kind of like a perfectionist and I have to, you know, deal with every little element on a map in a game, I have to explore it. I can't leave one stone unturned. I spent so long on those levels just reading the little signposts and learning about the Goombas and the Koopas and learning about this world. It really thrust me into that open world experience Mario did. And that was just the beginning, and that wasn't even that much. Recently, by the way, when I got Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch, I relived that same experience all over again, and it brought back all of those raw emotions, childlike sense of glee and wonder. It brought all of that back to the surface, so props on Nintendo for making Super Mario Odyssey so true to the original. Ah. Okay, back to Nintendo 64. Yes, Star Fox again with the high-tech Rumble Pack. And, oh my goodness, why can I not remember any more games for that system? Probably because the time between Nintendo 64 and PlayStation 1 was so short. I don't have that much experience with the Nintendo 64. But I did Mario Kart. So it was basically those three games. F-Zero, not F-Zero. Star Fox, Mario Kart, and Mario 64. Mario Kart was a racing game. I tried racing games, but I never really got into them, and still to this day, racing games don't appeal to me. But Mario Kart has something that other racing games does not have to offer. It has strategy, reaction, it has unknown variables, constant chaos, mitigating damages, and getting ahead in the game, in a race, going from 12th to 3rd place. Like, that thrill, each and every game is something exciting and different, and you're solving it on the fly. That was Mario Kart for me. And I did not play any of the follow-up Mario Karts until the Nintendo Wii. And I would play that at my uncle's house, and I would now be able to play people online, and I found that I was really good, and I was being able to keep up with those competitive players. So, back to PlayStation. There was Final Fantasy VII, which was my very first Final Fantasy, and I became obsessed, and then there was 8, and then there was 9, then there was 10. I could do many episodes on Final Fantasy alone and how they touch me and how much they mean to me, but I'm going to keep this short. Final Fantasy is so dear to my heart, it got me through my hellacious teenage years. So if you like Final Fantasy, you are a huge friend of mine because the world of Final Fantasy reflects a lot about who I am. Because a lot of my character growth, self-driven character growth, was thanks to Final Fantasy. I would strive to become like the protagonists, Cloud, Squall, Zidane, even the side characters like Zell from 8 was really goofy. Vivi was very gentle, respectful, humble, and quiet. I reflected those qualities as well. And then the girls of Final Fantasy were like they were leaders. They took charge, and just like the men did. And it gave me a good example of a strong woman figure. And all of that Final Fantasy offered me, as well as the addicting numbers and stat points and materia and weapon advancement systems and modifications and strategies, and all wrapped up in a nice turn-based combat system that gave you time to plot and plan. when they came out with the action adventure style RPGs such as Kingdom Hearts, I did not like it, and I still don't. The newer Final Fantasies, such as Final Fantasy 15, which I recently finished for the first time, do have a more button smashing hack and slash. As long as they keep close to the upgrades and the stat points and, making it difficult yet obtainable with enough work to get high grade weapons and armor, as long as they have those things, I could handle a little bit of hacking and slashing. But Final Fantasy 15 was a bit too much of that for my tastes. And it makes me happy that the remake of Final Fantasy VII is going back to a turn-based style. If you want that, and if you want the hack and slash action based they have, you could switch to that mode instead. So it makes me really excited for the remake. But I'm not obsessing over the Final Fantasy VII remake. If all the Final Fantasy diehard nerds are like salivating at the bit for that Final Fantasy VII remake, I'm not. It's like, cool, when it comes out, it could come out, because I've played Final Fantasy VII over 20 times, start to finish. I am a little bit flooded by the story, because I've been through that story so many times. So playing through that story on a newer modern age system will be nice and nostalgic, but I'm almost done with Final Fantasy VII. I've played it so much. It's fulfilled its purpose in my life. So I'm going back to my very early days of the first Nintendo system, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, which I had. I had the original Game Boy, the brick that you could bludgeon people with. It was black and white. The game that has followed me throughout my life in a very different way. I'm talking about Final Fantasy and like RPGs and Mario with meaning and significance and purpose and exploration. There's a game that didn't do any of that for me, but it was just as dear to my heart, and that game was Tetris. Oh, I fell in love with Tetris because it scratched a different kind of itch. It scratched a sort of itch that allowed me to zone out, enjoy the game, be challenged and stimulated, but also keep my mind clear and open to sort of do some introspective self-reflection and meditation while I play. If you're aware of what I'm talking about, the automated autopilot system. When you're driving, you're not really thinking all that much about how you're driving, or you're not thinking about looking for red lights. Your brain does all that automatically. Tetris gives that to me. It allows me to solve puzzles, clear, be challenged, fight the clock, do epic combos and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm not thinking about it. So it's a great game for me to wind down because it helps me relax. Which is funny because it's a very non-relaxing, fast-paced game. Tetris has been one of my first loves, and it still is. And now that I'm fast-forwarding now. I played a dozen different Tetris games throughout my life. Fast forward to my recent purchase as of a year and 3 months ago, the Switch, the Nintendo Switch. I went through a slump of console gaming from the age of 19 to 31, where I didn't play any console games, and I missed a lot of what happened during that time span during my 20s. But when I got this Switch, I was brought back to that wonderful, magical world of console gaming. The first games I got for the Switch were, the first hard copies, Mario Kart, yes, Octopath Traveler, Mario Odyssey, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze or something, the Mario Deluxe, which is nostalgic to Super Mario World. If you haven't played Mario Deluxe, it kind of wraps up every Mario game that has been released in the past 20 years and gives you elements and aspects of those. So you're kind of getting a taste of all Mario games put into one. You'll know it by the level design, the animations, the sounds. Pay attention to the sounds. You'll hear a lot of classic sounds in that game. and it just is so ripe and rich with nostalgia, and not one person has mentioned that on any game review. I'm mentioning it right now. Mario Deluxe is a culmination of all the beauty and splendor of all Mario's put together. Yes. And then I downloaded a bunch of games when I learned how the eShop worked, and I got Fallout Shelter, which I probably did like one episode on Fallout Shelter. I got Tetris 99. More on that one in a bit. I want to talk about Tetris 99. Mario Kart, which I started playing, and I went from. They start you at a ranking of 1,000 points, and I'm up to about 4,000 points now in that game by playing online. So that means, on average, I take about 4th place every race, and I get X amount of points, and I level up. But I'm nowhere near those players with like 28,000 points and beyond, because I'm not like I don't grind games like I used to. I'll play them for 30 minutes and then I've had my fill and then go on with life. Fallout Shelter, I filled out the entire shelter. I'm just about to hit 200 dwellers. I'm working on maxing every dweller to full special stats. So there's 7 stats, the SPE, blah, blah, blah. Those stat points, I'm maxing each one to level 10. That's really fun, which involves every morning getting on and collecting all training rewards, reassigning people to different training rooms, and putting out fires and defending against death claws and that kind of thing. I love Fallout Shelter, but I'm kind of reaching the end of my career with that game. Tetris 99, I think I'm just beginning. That game made me realize if there's a game I want to be competitive in today, it's Tetris. And I realized I want to start my own YouTube channel on Tetris and do live streaming. I used to think I would want to live stream on an MMORPG like Final Fantasy Online or something. No, I want to live stream Tetris because that game is so fulfilling to me, and that feeling of being above the playing field, playing by muscle memory and visualization in your mind alone because you can't see the piece, but you know how to rotate it and place it above the playing field when it stacks up because people push you up, and then you clear that, and one after another you clear out lines until you shrink down to the bottom. In the process, you've sent 50 lines of garbage, knocked out 5 players, collected so many badges, and now your attacks are that much stronger and do that much more damage. So all of a sudden you're in a top 10 duel off, and the speed intenses to where it's instant drop, and you're like, oh my god, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake. And I always made mistakes because I psyched myself out. But I won my very first Tetris 99 match a couple weeks ago. Oh, the bliss, the wonder, the splendor of glory of conquering 98 other players gave me that thirst, and it revived my passion for Tetris even more because I was getting very defeated with that game. And then I won another. I'm up to about 7 total wins in that game, first place finishes. So if you are a Tetris 99 or a Super Mario Kart player on this Nintendo Switch, I want to be your friend. I want to be Nintendo Switch friends. And it's very hard to do so, but we'll make it happen somehow. Because I love Tetris, and it'd be fun to maybe somehow play Tetris with someone else. Or we could play Tetris Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is... I have a lot of gripes about that game, but it still does what it needs to do. Offers a nice 1 versus 1 Tetris experience. So yes, Tetris or Mario Kart, let me know, because those are the games I'm currently jamming on. To scratch my RPG itch, I am playing through Octopath. Started just 2 days ago. Already collected most of the characters, and it's a great, simple game with all the qualities of RPGs I like. I love the concept of having 8 characters, but it really does constrict how they move forward with the story. They did a really, really damn good job with it, and I have no gripes with the game at all, but they can't really branch off from there. So it's a nice standalone RPG. They might do something else to twist the mechanics in that game. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you choose one of 8 characters to start with, and then you collect the other 7 along your journey, and you learn their story, and you complement each other in battle, and it's a really great game with stunning visuals. My wife doesn't like it as much because it's very pixel arty, but the pixel art, it's the perfect canvas for how they manipulate it, and with the blurred effects of out of focus, the bokeh, they do such a tremendous job. How they glisten and sparkle the scenes, the textures are very plain, but they do so much with that. So it's a work of art in itself. So I highly recommend Octopath Traveler, even if you're not an RPG player, because you'll learn the basics of RPG because it's not that complex. I didn't even talk about my PC gaming. I did League of Legends for a while. I got to the top of Silver League. I, I think I got into Gold League once and stayed there for one day, but I stayed mostly in Silver. I didn't like that game because of the toxic people, and I uninstalled it as soon as I realized I was becoming toxic as well. So I don't really. I'll play League of Legends with people if they are playing it. We always lose, which is a curse because every time I play with someone else, we always lose. I don't know how that works, if it's me or them. Anyway, it's just that game. Here's the thing with League of Legends and games like it. You're not always having fun. It's a very competitive game, and if you're not a competitive person, you will be pushed out of that game really fast. If you are competitive, you have to have a very strong sense of character to endure the toxic environment. Not just the people you're playing against, but your people on your own team blaming you for every little thing. That's why I don't like it. I found that I only enjoyed the game when I won, and that enjoyment was short-lived. And I lost most of the time, so I spent most of my time complaining and grumbling that I lost. Then there was Hearthstone. Now, Hearthstone branches off from my Magic the Gathering career. Yes, I played Magic the Gathering for about 5 years competitively. I was at one point in the top 25 of California. Like, that's like, yeah, I went to very big tournaments. My game played for itself because I would win cards at tournaments, booster box packs of cards that would pay for my gaming. So like all I would pay for is that $5 to $20 tournament entry fee, and everything else would be paid for because I'd win those cards back. And so it can be expensive, and I did spend a lot of money on Magic the Gathering early on, but over time it just paid for itself. But you know, I quit that game around the age of 20, and I had more life to experience, and so I just gently drifted away from it. But I love Magic the Gathering, and it has a warm spot in my heart. So when I discovered Hearthstone, I was in love, though I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't as complex as Magic, because Magic has the stack. And to explain the stack is to explain a multifaceted, variable, dynamic system in which anything could happen at any time, and you have to prepare for all possible threats. And every single turn, you have to know what card in your opponent deck can kill you outright, and what are the chances of them having that in their hand of 7 cards, or 7 or fewer. And I loved that, and I take notes while playing. If my opponent revealed a card, I'd be like, wait, don't go anywhere. I have to write all those card names down. And but I was not competitive, and I was not a jerk. I was still the friendliest little boy in the comic book shop. And there were I called them Go Pro players because they wanted to go pro. I was like coming out of my highly angsty, highly tormented and troubled autistic teenage years, learning how to socialize through Magic the Gathering. And it did a damn good job. So I was humble, quiet, shy, very timid, but I kicked the ass of the card shop's best players. So I became the best player, even though no one would have expected little old me to be a pro player. I was for a while. Also, speaking of obscure gaming, Dance Dance Revolution. Before Magic the Gathering was DDR. And I think it was DDR2 I joined the scene, and I became a competitive player as well. If you haven't noticed, I am generally overall a very competitive player and I seek to be the very best in every game I play. DDR was a physical game, so I would burn a lot of calories, gain a lot of stamina and endurance, speed, lower body muscle mass. That helped me become a competitive runner, which I had my competitive running career. And so, yeah, DDR. Who would have thunk it? Now, to this day, I could still do really, really good at DDR for like half of one song, then I will pass out from exhaustion. But that muscle memory is still there, and I could still get all perfects, and which is known as a AAA in DDR, which is a entirely perfect score, where you have to step according to the beat, and you have to be within milliseconds for it to be counted as a marvelous or a perfect. Yes, I was a AAA player, and yeah, I was that kid who came into a movie theater, bypassed the movie ticket check stand because I say, no, I'm going to the arcade, and I would walk out of the movie theater stripped and sweat because I played for 4 to 8 hours at a time every single day because I had a job and that was it. Like, I had no other life responsibility. So I DDR'd it up. There's a lot of other obscure games like that I've played throughout my years, but I think I put enough emphasis on those games that mean the most to me, and all mean so much to me. And it is a wonder that we are living in an age where people are now being born into this very complex world of gaming, where now you have all the indie developers just pumping out games and thousands of success stories, people making games, the little dog, the underdogs, the little engine that could make a game and it becoming a cult classic, such as Stardew Valley. Yes, I love that game. And and people could just pump out a game on their own computer if they know what to do, know what to Google, and it's crazy to see that we are not restricted by the console developers pumping out like one game every few weeks, which that's I had to mark it on my calendar when the next game was coming out so I could see my friends play it and to know if I should rent that at Blockbuster or something. It's just crazy that we could play games on our phone that have the graphics of a PS3 or more. Like, it's just crazy where gaming has evolved and taken us. And even scarier and more crazy where it will go in the future. How gamification is becoming a sort of business model now, where businesses and corporations are using that sort of gaming construct mindset. The stat points, the leveling up, the risks versus reward. It's kind of weird how our culture is so gamified. It's really cool as well. Um, we're going places with technology, and that's a topic for another episode. Technology itself. I do have a lot of thoughts about that, and a little preview thought is I think as far as technology and an advancement of our society as a whole, we are going way too fast and not taking into consideration the frameworks and infrastructures that were laid down decades ago that are still there holding up our castle built on sand. So, yes, I think our society is moving too fast, and I think there will be an eventual collapse in one way or another. Just to think about it, imagine if the entire world went without internet for only one day. How many billions or trillions of dollars of profit loss would there be? How many businesses and people and individuals and people needing assistance would be affected? Because everything is built on the internet. And what's the internet built on? So look forward to that episode in the future. And I'll try to remind myself to talk about it because I have a lot of interesting thoughts on where this beast is taking us. But that is all for now. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you are a fellow gamer, and I hope that you play Tetris so we can become really good friends. Or Mario Kart. Those are the two games I'm currently playing. Hardcore, Mario Kart and Tetris. Okay, this is all. Shout out if you are a gamer too. Literally, if you are a gamer of any kind, even if it's just free apps on your phone, let me know. Because you are cool. Even if you don't play games. This is Jazzy Jaina Jaslyn saying, I love you from the bottom of my heart. Farewell. Have a groovy splendiferous day and keep kicking ass, okay?